Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Engaging Our Communities. I am Anissa Amalia with Edmonds Community College, and today I am joined with Eli Kimaro. And welcome, Eli.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
We're so glad to have you here.
Thanks.
And so, yeah, during the lecture, you've talked a lot about the process of making your film, and you said that you quit your job. And was it hard for you to choose that for the film, the documentary?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it was a total leap of faith, So I'd been working for 12 years as an activist. I had no experience making a film. I had no reason to think I would be able to make a film, but I wasn't actually leaving to make a film. I was just leaving to do a very personal home video documentary. But of course, no matter where you go, there you are, right? So I head all the way there, and I think I'm making a very personal project, and it just ends up sort of tying right back into all the activist work that I've been doing while I was here, and so it just kept growing, and so I think if I had left the profession of being a crisis counselor to become a filmmaker, that would have terrified me, and I never would have done it. But it was almost like taking a sabbatical, you know what I mean? Like just a little leave of absence. I was feeling burnt out, and I needed to sort of redirect my energy a little bit. Yeah. That felt not very scary at all. Yeah.
That's good. And what were the challenges while you're making the documentary at Tanzania?
In Tanzania, yeah. There were lots of challenges. I mean, being a first-time filmmaker with my partner, too, my husband, who was also a first-time filmmaker, making a documentary film in a country where we were learning the language, with electricity that would go off often. There was technical challenges. And also I was learning how to film. I didn't know how to compose. I was learning composition on the go. There was the technical challenges of making a film for the first time in a developing country, in the global South. And then the other thing that was challenging was also, the cross-cultural communication. Lots of room for miscommunication and misunderstandings. And, you see some of that in the film, our earnest attempt to try to film culture and how misguided it was. And we just included that in the film to sort of give a sense that, we're folks who are doing our best and we're being really earnest in our efforts, and we're missing a lot of the time. And so, that's all sort of folded into the film. So yeah, it was hard, but we came away with it with a better understanding of our culture, And
then, you said you're a first-time filmmaker, and then I heard during the lecture that you're an accidental artist. Yeah. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, accidental artist, that's a new one that I've just come into. My friend recommended that one to me. But more I think of myself as an activist who happens to have made a film. And so, when people ask me, and the difference really comes out when we go to film festivals. So when I'm at a film festival and I'm sort of lining up and people are interviewing a whole lot of filmmakers, one of the questions they always ask is, well, what are you working on next? What's coming down the pipeline? What have you got brewing next? And, if you're a filmmaker, and that's your ambition, and that's your drive, and that's your focus, you always have an answer.
Yeah.
You've got something coming. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
I don't. My goal is to figure, it took me 10 years to make this movie. And as an activist, my goal is to figure out, how do I use this now? How can I leverage this tool that now exists in our community to further and deepen into our activism? You know what I mean? How can I use it as a tool for engagement? So I like that, this conversation is engaging with our communities, because that's what I want to use this film for. I want to find a way to now bridge my two loves of art and activism. And now I have something that I can offer our communities to use as a springboard for having those conversations that can just sort of inspire people to dig deeper.
And throughout the whole process of making the movie, was it hard for you to realize about your other side of the families, their stories, and how did you cope with that?
I think it was hard. There were different parts of the journey that were hard at different times, because over the course of 10 years, I continued to grow and evolve also as a person, and I became a mom during that time, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing these stories from a different perspective, you know what I mean? And I'm hearing my aunts share their stories, and I'm thinking about it now from the point of view as a mom with a daughter, and knowing that this is likely going to be how they enter into the institution of marriage. What would that do to me? Where would I have to go as a mother to be able to How do you survive that as a mom? You know, so my perspective even on the story that I was telling was changing over time, and then, you know, also as the film was going on, it was about 7 years into the film that I sat down and I had that conversation with my mom and dad that totally changed the course of our film. And after that, I totally rewrote the film completely from my point of view. And, you know, because the film, it was born on the page, you know, because I'm a writer first and foremost. And so I rewrote the entire film, and all the narration comes out of my journal entries. And, but that shift happened 7 years into the film. And so I was constantly learning and allowing myself to engage with and grow with the film as it was evolving. And so the stuff that was challenging for me to deal with, like while I was there filming, was different from the stuff that was challenging for me to deal with, like, you know, when I first got back, and then as it evolved. I mean, there was always new material that was sort of bringing up stuff for me as I was sort of sitting down and trying to figure out how to find our story.
And there are also some communication problem because you're part of the family from your dad wasn't able to speak English, correct? And how does it feel like to be a silent bearing witness to your aunts? Like, what was it like for you, just like sitting there and like listen to their stories?
You know, actually, that was fine. I mean, hearing their stories for the first time threw me for a loop. Don't get me wrong, and it was I was shocked, and it stopped me in my tracks, and pretty much from that point on, I stopped. My filming kind of came to a close after that conversation because I was really reeling from the content of our conversation. But as the conversation was happening, there was something that was going on in that room with us. You know what I mean? Like, because the transformation was happening in real time, and it was happening in front of my eyes, and therefore it was happening in front of the camera's eyes. You see it as you watch the film. You see what happened to my aunts, and where they start the conversation and where they end up. In the course of that conversation, you see the transformation, and they look like very different people at the end, you know? And so you can imagine that being in the energy of that, there's just, that was being present and showing up for them was all I was thinking about. Afterwards, I was reeling from how hard that was and what I, like, you know, just the disbelief of it. But in the moment, sitting in the hut with my aunts, it was like my entire life was getting me ready for that moment. To show up for them in that way, you know, and be there with them and bearing witness to their truth-telling in that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I have some final questions for you. Okay. We ask this question towards the end of the interview, and the first question is, what was your first job?
My first job was working at a pool snack bar. I worked in a pool snack bar. This is going to sound, well, my parents worked for the World Bank and the IMF, and they belonged to this country club that was called Bretton Woods. So yeah, I worked in the pool snack bar there, and I always prayed for thunderstorms because then, like, you know, the pool would close down, I could go home early, you know? So, but yeah, that was my first job.
And what was the last book you read?
The last book I read all the way through, I'm going to get this title wrong, but I think it was called Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. It's by Jonathan Safran Foer, and man, like, in such a different way, like, he is very interested in unpacking his journeys. His stories are always about a journey to explore identity, and it's very tied to family and culture. And so, you know, I'm drawn to his books. Last time I was in Tanzania, I read Everything is Illuminated, and I felt like, well, someone's already written my book. I guess that's been done. You know, like, in a different way, obviously, and it's in a narrative form, but you know, sometimes I read works of people and I'm like, well, that's just my film in a different form. Like, Jhumpa Lahiri is another person who every time I read her books is like, wow, that's just she's exploring a very similar subject matter, and I like to see how other people sort of wrangle and wrestle with it, and how it they of course, it comes out so beautifully when they write about it. So.
And what makes you smile?
My kid, man, my Lucy, she is hilarious. I mean, I know that's probably a very common answer, but she really is. She's fantastic. So, the most recently, like, you know, she's an artist. She really is she's a very she has a gift for visual arts. She can draw anything. And so, you know, we talk about that, and I can't do that. But I'm like, but I sculpt. I mean, look what I made. Look at you. Like, seriously, I made a nose that can smell. Can you top that? Like, that's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, those eyebrows, man, that's fantastic. You know, I made you. And she looked at me, she's like, yeah, Mom, but I made you. And I was like, well, dang. All right. Yes, you did. You know what I mean? Like, and she comes up with these things that are just fantastic, you know? And and she's yeah, I don't know. And she's hilarious. And so yeah, she makes me laugh all the time.
Okay. And what's playing on your iPod or a CD player, or you know?
Thank you for including CD player, because I do not have an iPod. What is on there right now? Oh man. Well, you know, I think it might be Here Comes Science, They Might Be Giants. Very good educational DVD and CD, but yeah, I am learning about the solar system, and my kid's getting smarter, and we're rocking out while we do it. So I think that's what's on there right now. So
okay, and the last one, what inspires you?
Creative people, you know, and hearing people talk about their process, I can't get enough of it. You know, I think this might be sort of also me coming into art later in life, and being very much a DIY kind of. I mean, I'm always soaking up those. Right now, I'm in the middle of watching, you know, those James Lipton Inside the Actor Studio. Oh my God, I'm devouring those on YouTube. Commercial free, dreamy, I love it, you know. And so, but I'm always like watching, or the TED Talks talking about creativity, you know, and so I'm always like Shakar Kapoor like goes on. I was actually trying to channel Shakar Kapoor today, because as part of the lecture, I just decided I'm going to go out with no notes, and I'm just going to see where this conversation takes me, you know, and because I'm usually married to my notes or the presentation that goes on behind me, and I didn't have access to it. So I'm like, let's just see where this goes as a conversation. And so like just always sort of hearing how people sort of, people who are so much more seasoned in talking about creativity and the creative process, that totally inspires me. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Ellie, for joining us today.
Thank you.
It was nice having you here for the lecture and the interview. And thank you for watching Engaging Our Community with Edmonds Community College.